Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in for another one of my videos. This is one for the Yes fans, of course. I've got a few more comments on the Tales box, having listened to a couple more of the discs. Just before I get into that though, how did we all get on with John Anderson tickets? I went on pre-sale yesterday and I go general sale tomorrow, so whenever you're watching this, this is kind of the day between I'm recording this. Now, I can't remember the last time I bought a ticket for a concert. My concert days, going days really behind me, other than the odd classical concert. But I had to try and get tickets for John Anderson, and so yesterday was given over for that. Now, interestingly, we registered with the the official site to get advanced pre-sale preference, but I also found out that the Symphony Hall in Birmingham, which I used to be registered with eons ago, I no longer was, and so I stumped up the 35 quid to re-register with them, because they were having a pre-sale on the box office, from the box office on the day, on yesterday, and they explained to me that you would be able to see the seats and they would have front block seats, whereas some of the other people like Ticketmaster would get not the best allocation, if you like. So in the end, as far as Birmingham is concerned, that's what I decided to go with. So phone at the ready, internet at the ready, and Bob's your uncle. Yeah, got straight through. Decided to get third row. Don't like being front row, but got third row for a central, and no booking fees or any silly additional charges. So really chuffed, and 80 quid. I think these days is not bad. Quite a sensible price for a brilliant seat, so really happy. Now, the interesting thing, I decided that I'd try and do the show they're doing in Bath, at the Forum in Bath, because it's the next show after Birmingham, and they weren't doing any sort of pre-sale from the box office there. So my option then was to go through the My Ticket pre-sale link, which came through on the morning. So as soon as I got Birmingham out of the way, about 10:05 by this time, I went straight onto My Ticket. Yeah, tickets on sale, clicked it, and they offered me a rear circle. And this is what they used to do in the bad old days, and obviously still doing it. You think you're getting preferential treatment, but you get a crap seat, because that's what they've been allocated. So I decided in the end I'd give up with that and I wouldn't bother, and maybe see what comes up on the day they go on general sale. But there I was in the afternoon. I'd done some various chores, just come back from taking the dog for a walk, and I thought, oh, let's just try it again. Lo and behold, front block. So bang dead centre, two seats, I think second or third row again, 75 quid. I mean, fantastic. But why those weren't on offer first time, and I did try it 2 or 3 times just to see if they'd give me a better seat, and they didn't. So so there you go. But I'm really happy I've got those seats, and we just got to pray that John keeps fit and healthy, and that we see him in September for those shows, which I think are going to be fantastic. Right. So hopefully you all got on all right with it. Be interesting to see whether there's any sort of bad stories or anything like that. But anyway, I've found time to give a little bit more listening to this beautiful thing. What I decided to do, having sort of listened to the live stuff, is listen to the 2026 Steve Wilson remix. And this is because the remixes are it's a different animal, and like we found with the 2016 one that he did, it just was a completely different animal. So my I had to make a few notes as I went along, which is a bit distracting when you're trying to concentrate on it so much. What I think is great is that in contrast to the 2016 remix that he did, this one, I think Steve Wilson's recognised this needs to be an immersive, completely flowing set of tracks, music. In 2016, it was, to me, it's like he's got the jigsaw, he's broken it all up, the pieces have all scattered, then he's trying to put the pieces back together and he hasn't quite got them in the holes right. He's got them in the right order, but he hasn't quite got them back in the holes right. That was the analogy I had. So to me, I didn't really like the 2016 remix that he did, even though it was very, very clean. But with the new one, I think he's learned a lesson from that, and what this is, all 4 tracks are beautiful, beautiful, immersive, continually flowing music, just like the original album was. The contrasts obviously give us the dynamics to the music, but he hasn't messed about with suddenly leaving a cold bit here and then a warm bit there, and so all the tracks are great from that point of view, and so they are fantastic. They are really, really gorgeous. Now, Revealing Signs of God, I was pleased to see that he'd used what I call the Big Bang intro, the sort of quiet intro before the chant starts. It was evident as soon as the chant began that he'd upped the bass. So Squire's bass, very much more prominent and more rounded, a more rounded sound to the bass. It's warmer, smoother, but it's more prominent. I think Rick's keys seemed quieter, so it's like they were pushed back slightly, certainly at the first half of the chant. And then the other thing that was noticeable to me is that the volume increased more dramatically than it did on the original version, so it makes it a bit more dramatic by starting quietly and then brings the volume up. Just I need to say, my ears are rubbish. I've got tinnitus in both ears. They're terrible, and I'm not listening to this on the best hi-fi system in the world, so I'm just going by what I'm picking up. The Starlight Teacher section seemed very harsh in comparison to what had come before it, so it suddenly seemed to be a bit harsh. Now that's a nice contrast in a way, and I don't mind that, but it jarred me a little bit. And then the other thing that I thought about the whole of Revealing Science was that the Alan White's snare drum seemed very dull. It didn't sort of ping off the skin, and I don't know whether it just set back a bit, but the drums throughout it seemed a bit subdued. Now I very much like the drums to come to the fore and be crystal clear and snappy and all that, and I think that he'd set them back a little bit more than I would have done, but again, it might be my ears. Now, as far as the remembering is concerned, I think we're in the kind of near perfection world here, because again, Squire's bass is there, booming and growling and doing what it does, but because the remembering is that sort of track where you're off on you're sailing away and you're off following the music, and it's kind of it's the ultra immersive track, if you like, on Tales. There's no detraction at all from the bass sound. So I've just described it's got more warmth and depth, and also the drums much cleaner and crisper sounding to me on the Remembering than on the Revealing Science. So pretty much absolute magic, absolutely magic. And it is probably my favourite track as well, which I'm probably biased, but it means that I can play that version quite happily, maybe even in preference to the original version or some other version. Moving on to the Ancient, this was a bit, again, it's fantastic, and I'm not picking fault, Squire's bass definitely got this sort of more rounded, warm sound than the twangier original mix did. And it growls like anything throughout the track. Now we know it does, and it's part of the track's appeal. Is Squire's bass work is just phenomenal, as we know, and whatever effect he was putting it through to get this sort of growling, wow, wow sound, and it just seems a bit more emphasised. I think it's more to the fore. It's louder, and the other thing that kind of, for me, because the bass is that much more prominent, Steve's guitar, which to me is kind of the focus, or should be the focus point of much of the Ancient, if not all of it, is kind of set back a bit. So I would have liked Steve's guitar to be much more prominent, and than it is. It seems to me as if he's like at the back of the room, just playing as loud as he can, but he's at the back of the room. So you've got the bass and other things going on. So I would have maybe, yeah, liked a little bit less bass and more Steve on the mix. What else have I made notes of? Yeah, I mean it's a phenomenal track, and everything's so crystal clean, and it's still completely faithful. There's nothing detracting really at all. Leaves of Green, Rick was very quiet in the background. I think a bit quieter than he could have been. So I like the accompaniment he gives to Steve's acoustic guitar. But again, that might be because I've heard too many sort of live versions and stuff. But and the other thing that I noticed that you can hear some castanets, which I presume Alan's playing those. But that was really interesting to hear. I suspect those were on some previous remixes that he'd done as well, but I'd forgotten that those were there. And I'm sure that it fades out much more slowly than the original version did. So it just sort of lets it carry on for a few more seconds. But it's just great. Finally, Ritual. Now, it was immediately noticeable to me as soon as Ritual started that the drums were much better, much cleaner, much crispier. You have crispy drums? No, probably not. You can't have crispy drums. But anyway, you know what I mean there. It was kind of more alive. Which, thank God, because it's Ritual. And I ended up not making too many notes because I got lost in the track, which tells you all you need to say, really, all you need to know. There are lots of little differences as you go through it, things that I picked up that I hadn't sort of remembered from before, or that they seem slightly different. Little drum phrases that seemed different. I mean, I don't know, you can't change a drum phrase if it's the same performance, but there's tiny little moments. The kettle drum sound when they're getting into the the sort of battle sort of section, if you like, or the war, sort of fighting it out. Very different sound here to the original, and the kettle drum being a higher pitch slightly changes the feeling of that section. But interesting. Not complaining about that at all. Just interesting. there's still a tiny gap at I put it 2 minutes 16 seconds or thereabouts. There's a tiny gap, which it's less than half a second, and I think he did that on the last version, which kind of, I don't know. I'd rather it wasn't there. And it may have been on the original, and it's just because the sounds were sort of less defined on the original mix. You didn't notice it so much. Just before John sings "Hold Be My Love," the sound of Steve's guitar is beautiful. The sound that Steve Wilson has managed to coax out of Steve's guitar work, it's only 12-15 seconds or so, is gorgeous. It's just fantastic. And the only other note that I made was when John's singing "Going Home," the home is stretched out a bit more, I think, than the original, which made me think, well, has that been kind of slightly faked? But probably not. So I thought in the original he kind of says "going home," well, on this one he goes "home." So anyway, it's fantastic. I really like them. These 2026 remixes, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Really happy to have those, and the next ones I'm probably going to do is just the remastering of the original album, and see what this remaster has to give. We have to realise the remixes are always going to be a different animal, slightly or majorly. It's going to be a different animal, so that's why I wanted to hear these remixes. But it's the most beautiful animal you could wish for, really. So if I had a gripe, the drum sound on the Ancient, and particularly, was just lacking punch, which I think it should have a bit more punch for that track. But there you go. The only other thing really to comment on, the book is very nice. It's nice to see that they've done a little proper booklet with it, and the writing's very good. But it's done in a kind of, not management speak kind of thing, but in that kind of so professional way that I find that I start to kind of scan read it. So there's a lot of talk about the thing without necessarily being sort of focusing on specifics so much, whereas I would have liked, I think, given we're talking about Tales from Topographic Oceans, where I think you need to start getting into the specifics of it. The trouble is with that, it becomes subjective, and I realise you're then just giving an opinion, whereas Sid Schwartz isn't asked to give an opinion, he's asked to give an overview on what it is, what it's all about. So it's just brilliantly written. I mean, his writing is so professional. I mean, as you know, I try to do my own book on my Tales box, but he says things in about 3 words that I take a paragraph to say the same thing, you know what I mean? So he comes up with a phrase. But and one of the things about the book that wasn't brilliant was the fact that there's no kind of shots of the topographic staging from the live tour. We've got obviously some close-up shots, but and I think Roger Dean had a bit of a gripe about that as well when he saw the box. If you've seen his box opening of it, he was quite disappointed to see that they hadn't featured that. I suppose the argument is that it's not a live set, it's a reissue of a studio album that they just happen to have put some live tracks on. But for me, the live topographic is a whole big thing, and it includes the live shows. and for probably a large proportion of the people who love the topographic album and will buy this, won't have seen the shows. So some shots, some nice pictures of the overall stage scenery, because it was a monumental thing. It was one of the first ever rock stages to have actual scenery like that, built solid scenery. So it's great, and I'm still marvelling at it. So next up will be the remaster, and I haven't played the vinyl yet. So anyway, thanks for watching this one, and we'll come back to you with some more thoughts. If you've got any comments of your own that you want to put down the bottom, just feel free to do so. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you again soon.